Welcome to this explainer, tailored specifically for procurement officials in Nepal. Today, we're going to meticulously unpack the financial evaluation process governed by the July and August 2026 PPMO standard bidding document. If you evaluate public works contracts, you know the stakes are incredibly high, and the rules, well, they're absolute. So let's walk through this exact rulebook together, step by step. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look beyond the lowest price. Then, we cover corrections and normalization, followed by nonconformities and exclusions. After that, we'll calculate the average bid, see how to resolve ties, and finally, handle post-evaluation failures. Section 1, Beyond the Lowest Price. It's not just about the lowest bid. We've really got to start by dismantling a common myth. The lowest price readout at the bid opening doesn't automatically secure the contract. That opened price is simply not yet the evaluated price. It's just a starting point. Before we can even consider awarding a contract, we have to systematically apply the required corrections, exclusions, and adjustments outlined in the standard bidding document. Section 2, Corrections and Price Normalization. To make sure we have a true like-for-like comparison across all bidders, ITB 35.2a gives us some very explicit instructions. You are strictly mandated to exclude value-added tax and exclude provisional sums from the evaluation price. Why is this absolutely crucial? Well, you can't fairly evaluate one bid that includes VAT against another that completely forgot it, or leave a provisional sum in some prices and remove it from others. Normalization ensures we're comparing apples to apples. Once we've normalized those numbers, we have to apply the strict arithmetic precedence rules found in ITB 33.1. This is the stage where we catch and correct mathematical errors. The rules dictate that the unit price always prevails over erroneous line item totals, unless, of course, you spot an obvious decimal point misplacement. On top of that, subtotals will always prevail over incorrect final totals. And finally, the price detailed in the summary bill of quantities overrules whatever is written in the letter of price bid. You must make corrections in this exact order. Moving right along to Section 3, Nonconformities and Mandatory Exclusions. This brings us to a really critical phase, pricing deviations, and removing bids that violate the strict mathematical thresholds. This perfectly illustrates ITB 31.3 and 31.4. Let's look at bid X. The bid price is 90 million Nepalese rupees, and we've quantified a nonconformity at 10 million rupees. That is 11.11% of the bid price. Because it falls strictly under the 15% threshold, the bid is accepted, and its evaluated price adjusts to 100 million rupees for our comparison. But now, consider bid Y. The bid price is 80 million rupees, but it has a 13 million rupee nonconformity. That comes out to 16.25%. Because it pushes past that strict 15% threshold, bid Y is instantly non-responsive and entirely excluded. We then have to apply an even more severe safeguard to protect against abnormally low submissions, the kind that truly threaten successful project delivery. As stated plainly in ITB 35.2, a bid must be rejected as non-responsive if its evaluated bid price is more than 30% below the cost estimate. Let's break that formula down. If the evaluated price, which we'll call P, is less than 70% of the official cost estimate, which we'll call E, it absolutely must go. For example, if your like-for-like cost estimate is 100 million rupees, any bid evaluated strictly below 70 million rupees is out, and it is vital to remember this. ITB 35.2 dictates mandatory rejection before any averaging takes place. You never, ever let an abnormally low bid drag down your overall average. Section 4, Calculating the average bid and finding our anchor point. So, how exactly do we determine the anchor point for our entire evaluation? Well, we use only the remaining compliant bids. Let's say we have 3 responsive bids remaining. Their average comes out to 92.60 million rupees. As ITB 36.1 mandates, we must now calculate the absolute distance of each bid from that specific average. Bidder A is 18.60 million rupees away, bidder B is 10.60 million rupees away. But bidder C? They are only 1.60 million rupees away. Therefore, the bid with the smallest absolute distance to that average, in this case bidder C at 91 million rupees, becomes our selected winner. Which brings us to Section 5, Resolving Ties, Equal Distances, or Equal Prices. But what exactly is the protocol when two bids are mathematically equidistant from that calculated average? The rulebook leaves absolutely no ambiguity here. ITB 36.1 clearly states that if two or more bid prices are equally close to the average bid price, you must select the tie-breaking bid that sits below the average, not above it. This actually triggers a fascinating mathematical guarantee that every single procurement official should know. If, after all those mandatory exclusions, exactly two valid bids remain, they will always be perfectly equidistant to their average. Let's say you have one bid at 96 million rupees and another at 108 million rupees. Their average is exactly 102 million rupees. Both are exactly 6 million rupees away from the average. Because they are tied in distance, that tie rule kicks in automatically, meaning the lower bid mathematically wins every single time. However, what if the evaluated prices themselves are exactly equal? Let's say two bids are both evaluated at exactly 101 million rupees, down to the very last rupee. The previous rule won't help you there because neither is below the average. In this extremely rare event, ITB 36.2 dictates you have to abandon the average distance check entirely. Instead, you put away the calculator, formally notify the concerned bidders, and select the winner by explicitly drawing lots. Finally, Section 6, Handling Post-Evaluation Failures. We need to address the procedural safeguards for when a successful evaluation suddenly just falls apart at the very end. What happens if the winning bidder fails to provide their performance security, or they just refuse to sign the contract? If you face this incredibly frustrating real-world scenario, you might be tempted to cross their name off the list and start the math all over again. But, as you probably guessed, the rules strictly forbid doing that. The governing clauses, specifically ITB 39.2 and 40.2, strictly demand that you select the next closest bidder using the exact same average you calculated in your initial evaluation. The absolutely critical phrase here is previously determined average bid price. You must never recalculate the average after a failure. Recalculating the average without that failed bidder improperly shifts all of the mathematical distances. It distorts the legal ranking and entirely violates the legal framework of the standard bidding document. You simply look back at your original table, you keep the original average in rupees, and you award the contract to whoever was second closest. So, as you return to your essential work in public procurement, ask yourself this. Are your evaluation processes and committee reports truly documenting this rigorous step-by-step reality? From strict price normalization to the final mathematical distance check, adhering to these exact clauses ensures absolute fairness for contractors and lasting value for Nepal. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep this rulebook close and let the math guide your evaluations, because in an audit, the math never lies. Are your reports ready?